so we decided that we just gonna dedicate the show, and I'm gonna just let him dig a little bit. So go ahead, man, dig, do your thing.
First question that we got on the board is, what was your inspiration to start the organization?
When I was younger, probably in my 20s, I had decided that I wanted to be a teacher, and I quickly recognized that a lot of teachers really couldn't help the kids that I wanted to help, because I wanted to help urban kids who were struggling and urban kids who were in poverty. And unfortunately, many of those young kids had situations and circumstances and extenuating circumstances that wouldn't allow them to, focus in class a lot and stay on task and pass their classes and this, that, and the other. And so I wanted to give them the help. And I quickly recognized that because I wanted to be a teacher and because I was a teacher's assistant, that I could only help those kids between 8:30 in the morning and 2:30. And so with that, I decided, okay, well, if I'm going to really help these kids, I need to go back to school and I need to finish my degree.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going back to school to finish my degree at the University of Minnesota. And I ended up getting a double degree, actually, in sociology and youth development. And the reason I mentioned the double degree is because it took me so long to finish the degree. And so I decided that once I went back to school, I was just going to double down and just really end up going hard. And so long story short, I ended up becoming a student advocate at North St. Paul High School for about 400 African-American students. And I recognized that it was young African-American males who were struggling in school. And I wanted to develop a program, an after-school program that would really speak to their needs and really help them. And so every Thursday I would have those young men wear suits. I would mentor them after school, help them with homework. We would have real conversations. I was kind of like a father figure to them, as well as, an advocate. And so advocating on their behalf in athletics and academics and working with the administration, and part of my responsibility was to hold administration accountable for certain things. And, we saw a lot of changes. The graduation rate started to increase. The in-school suspensions decreased. The out-of-school suspensions decreased. Young men started, getting involved in extracurricular activities and what have you. And so and behavior referrals and things like that just went down. So we knew we had something special with the Man Up Club. And so from there, I decided that we were going to be non-exclusive to that particular school, and we were going to branch out and actually become a 501c3 nonprofit organization that could partner with other schools and other businesses and churches and other, nonprofit organizations. And so in 2012 was where we started. We became a nonprofit in 2015. We've been going strong ever since.
Yes, sir. We love to hear that. We love to hear that. So you kind of answered the questions from earlier. I had a question about how it started and where you started. You started at St. Paul High School, right?
Yes.
So what about that encounter with the school was hard for you, and what was kind of like, okay, that was a breeze to do, far as starting and getting inside the schools and helping those urban kids?
Well, for me, I felt like I was called to it. I mean, so to me, that was the easy part because I was driven by passion from wanting to be a positive influence in their life, and just knowing that I had the ability to be able to connect, with those young men just on a different level than most people. And it's really about, gaining, their trust and having a rapport with them and a relationship with them and being someone inside the building. I can't express to you how important it is within school systems, public or private, how important it is to have African-American leaders in a building, inside a building where you have African-American students, because that is just so important for them to see people who care about them, but who also look like them. And so, we just kind of built that rapport. And for me, that was more of the easy part because I basically saw myself in those young men. The thing that was more challenging is when you're working with staff, and as a staff, you see certain things a certain way. And of course, I seen things in which the way the staff seen them as well. But the difference was I also had another perspective with me being a black male myself.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes, I would have to, sidestep the staff to get them to see from a different perspective as to how young men were being affected or how they may perceive something being who they are or in their position. And so the difficult part came, because I had, loyalty to both people. I had loyalty as a staff myself, and then I had loyalty being a black male myself. And so having to be able to balance that and choose. So, for example, if there was something that was wrong, I mean, we knew why, as a staff, we knew why things were wrong. But as a young black male, I also had another perspective to see how these particular challenges and issues were affecting young black males more than other students. And so that was the fundamental difference. And I could speak from a place that a lot of staff couldn't necessarily speak from, and even represent that. And so one of the hardest parts was just, just being able to be serious about the things that were going on, to draw lines of delineation and to, get people to see things from different perspectives. Because sometimes when you're in the building, you obviously see more things, but part of it is you have to risk relationships sometimes. And I had to realize that my goal in being in those institutions my end goal was not to be necessarily liked as a staff person, but to be effective and to be impactful. And so I had to realize that there was just certain staff people who were just not going to rock with me, and they just wasn't going to like me because of the values and the things that I stood for and the level of advocacy that I had, within that institution. And so they kind of, a lot of people refer that as speaking truth to power, people who are speaking truth to people who are in positions of power. And that can be difficult for some people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very important that you got to know how to overcome those working with people that don't like you. I think that's very important.
Oh, you definitely have to. I mean, and that's a man up lesson within itself.
Yeah.
How to work with people who don't like you. Just because someone doesn't like you doesn't mean that you can't work together.
Yeah.
There is a term that's called agree to disagree. And then there's hierarchy, and the power, and shared power. And then there's people who are in an authoritarian position. But at the end of the day, one of the things that, I would like to always instill in the young men that I work with, and even young men across the country, is that when somebody starts to challenge your morals and your values and your beliefs, you have to stand strong in that, and not waver in that, or what is right, or rules and regulations or systems that are set up where, it oppresses anybody.
Yeah.
And, and if you're an advocate, you need to be able to stand up for that unapologetically, and do your job, and understand that, your job may just be for a season.
Might not be temporary.
Can't hear you. What?
Might not be temporary.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So we know the Man Up Club is a mentor leadership program. Why is mentoring leadership so important to the urban culture, and how can we further understand your drive on mentorship?
Okay, let me answer the first one, and then we'll come back to the second one. Why is it so important to the urban culture? Well, first of all, I mean, when you look at urban culture, there's a high percentage of broken families that are in urban culture. And that's due to a multiplicity of things systematically, whether that's crime and violence, whether that's poverty, whether that's government systems that, that a community depends on, more than they should, or what have you. And just that the economics of it all is a really big factor. And then even family dynamics and family structure. And there's a significant amount, of fathers and Black male presence that are in urban homes. A lot of kids in the urban inner city don't grow up with their fathers, in those homes. and that can become a detriment to the family as well. I think that, and I'm just still a firm believer that the best structure in which a child should be raised is with a mother and father. And I think you can see some of the negative impacts and effects of when you come from a single parent home. And those statistics are out there. But even beyond statistics, I mean, if we just talking about the reality of urban culture, even with the education system, you know, we need mentors, just if for nothing else, for education, for understanding, to be able to have people in your neighborhood who are thriving, and who set the bar high for themselves. You want to be able to see those people. Yeah. Now, it's not that they do not exist within urban culture, but it's a low percentage. Yeah. You know, as far as, you know, your ability to really walk down the street and just run into an attorney, or walk down the street and run into a doctor. You know, a lot of times in urban culture, and this is no disrespect to any other professions, but a lot of times in urban culture, you're going to walk down the street and you'll run into possibly a pastor. Yeah. You might run into, you know, maybe a small business owner of a beauty salon, you know, or a nail shop, or what have you.
Corner store.
Or a corner store, you know, whatever. But, and there's no disrespect to those professions, but the point that I'm making is that there's a lot more than that. When you go to other communities, you see a lot more businesses, than just that. You know, you see all sorts of people. You see, you know, chiropractors, you know, all sorts of things, car dealerships, you know, things like that. And so, you know, if your view is limited in what you see, then that has some level of effect on your outcome. You know, I'm also a firm believer that you should be able to see some of the things that you want to become, because I believe that if you see it, it gives you another level of confidence to be like, oh, I had that experience, so I know that I can be that, or I ran into that. I was able to touch and feel that. And I just think that that's one of the things that we're missing in the urban community, is that hands-on.
Yes, sir. Hey, y'all stay tuned. It's your boy Jay Rio, and I'm interviewing the man himself, Mr. Dean, and we're going to get back into it. Hey, y'all already know what's going on. We back with it, and I'm with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Dean, A.K.A. XROSS. Y'all already know what's going on. What's the word, Mr. Dean?
How you doing, man? I'm good to be here. I'm excited. Let's get into it.
Hey, let's get into it. So we're going to continue on about talking about the mentoring organization that you have. Okay. That's only one, you know, one company that you got. But the question is, when it comes to the guys, why did you choose that certain age range between 13 to 24? And why did you choose the urban culture versus all cultures? Because versus the urban culture, everybody got differences.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason I chose 13 to 24, and in hindsight, I probably should have done it a little bit earlier when you actually see what's going on with a lot of kids today, because their influences are happening a lot younger. But the reason I chose 13 is just because I know that, you know, around the age of 13, you're very inquisitive about a lot of things, and then you have a lot of, you know, influences, and that kind of determines, you know, which way you're going as far as, you know, influence what you see. And then even just your ability to be able to understand and comprehend some things. And the reason we go up to 24 is because, you know, I know that, you know, a lot of people in the country, and even laws, you know, they say, okay, well, once you're 18, you're grown, or once you're 21, you're grown. But the reality, I don't believe that. You know, I don't believe that a young man is really stepping into a true manhood and adulthood until he's at least around 24 years old. You know, even with the cognitive development and decision-making processes, decision-making process, and things like that. And so, and even at 24, you're still trying to find your way through life. And that's where, you know, like that age range between that 18 and 24 is where you really got to make a lot of critical decisions in regards to adulthood and manhood that ultimately really could affect the rest of your life. And I don't think that a lot of young men who are at that age realize the level of their decisions, or the impact or the implications of the decisions that they make at that particular age. and how much it can affect them from a long-term perspective. And even when I think back, myself being that age, I had a lot of responsibility myself at that age, because I had my first son when I was 20 years old, and I stepped into being a father. And then through tragedy, I stepped into being a single father at 20. And what do I know about that at that time? Not a thing. And so it took me some years, and I was in emergency mode of trying to gather all the information that I could based on the responsibilities that I had, to be able to navigate my way, and try to be, what some people deem to be successful. I knew I didn't want to be poor. Mm-hmm. I knew I didn't want to struggle. I knew I wanted to be educated. But I didn't necessarily know the path, necessarily on how to obtain those things, and nothing was a guarantee. So mentorship during that time, during those ages were critical. So that's kind of why I chose, 13 to 24, because there's just a lot of influence going on at that time. You're in middle school, you got those influences. You got high school. That's a huge point in your life. You jumping into a career after that if you're going to trade school, or you jumping into college, which is another subculture of being around a whole bunch of people. And decisions got to be made, and a lot of opportunities to get into a lot of different things. And so, yeah, that's why I kind of chose that particular demographic. Now, when it comes to urban, for me, I've just always had a passion for the urban inner city, because I grew up in that environment. Yeah. I first grew up, in a small country. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, which is an urban area. I didn't spend a lot of time there, so I ended up moving to Missouri as a kid, but to the country. And so, there were so many limitations by just living in the country that I didn't have access to. Man, I didn't even see my first McDonald's until I was in the 7th grade. So, go figure. And then I grew up in a tiny town called A.K.A, Missouri, where we only had one store.
That's a long time not seeing a McDonald's.
Man, please, man. I'm trying to tell you. Like, I was there when the original Big Mac came out. The big one with actually the real sauce, the one that you could hold with 2 hands. I don't know what they sold in McDonald's today.
No, it does.
Yeah, but for real. So, man, yeah, it was different. Like I said, tiny town, man. We had one store, one gas station. They call them one-horse towns. I grew up in a one-horse town, man. Yeah. And it was just interesting. We had like one park with one basketball goal, and it wasn't full court, and you know what I'm saying, and half the time it didn't have a net.
I was gonna say, was it an actual hoop, or was it one of those crates?
So like
McDonald's, the milk crates.
Yeah, well, milk crate, but we would take, man. So the way I grew up, man, we would take the bicycle. We'd take the tire off the bicycle, man. Snatch all the spokes out of the bike.
Oh man,
you feel me? Take the rim, nail the rim to a telephone pole. You feel me?
And just hoop like that.
And just hoop.
See, that's country. See, I thought I was country, but that's country.
Yeah, and we would, man, please, we didn't even use a basketball to play basketball. We use anything. Boy.
Anything. Okay, water bottle, everything.
I remember days I took softball and was shooting.
What? That's country.
Yeah.
That's I thought. See, I do down south Mississippi country. That country, I ain't grew up like that, so I just know. I know urban, or I know modern country. You feel me? So when you say you was using any and everything for a basketball hoop, that's like, I can see why though.
Yeah, I'm talking, man, to the point where man, we ain't even got to urban yet. Right now, we just talking about just being country.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we didn't. We didn't have like a washer and dryer. I never used a dryer.
You better get the stomping.
Yeah, that's what I did. Threw my clothes in the bathtub, threw some detergent on them, and rolled up my pants, got in the tub and walked on them. That's how I washed my clothes, and then took them out by hand and squeezed them, and then took them outside and hung them on the line. Man, you couldn't tell me nothing about no dryer. I ain't know nothing about that.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? So, and then just some quick stories, man. Like, I remember times when I was playing with my best friend, man, and we didn't know nothing about gymnastics. And so, we would just find an abandoned. Now, watch this. This is so nasty and this is so unsanitary, but I got to say it because it was just my life. I think about it today and be like, I want to throw up.
We being real. Man, y'all hear it. We being real.
Man, me and my boys would go to abandoned houses that we knew nobody lived in. When they would have an old mattress in there that's been there for months and God knows whatever, man. We take them, the mattresses and stack them up. We'd go on the swear if it had a second floor, we go on the second floor, bro, and we just flip off the top and just land on the mattresses and just run up the steps and just keep doing it all day.
That's so disgusting. Like at its fine. Like I've heard of people breaking into like abandoned houses and grabbing merchandise and pictures and stuff, but flipping off of the second floor.
Yeah, man, that's how I learned how to flip and all of that, man. And I've been exposed to outhouses too.
Yeah,
bathrooms that are not in the house.
Yeah,
or you got to go outside in the back. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I just came back from Mississippi. Last year, and we went back to where my great granddad was a slave, and his shack and stuff is still out there.
Yeah.
The outhouse still standing up. Everything else is broken down, but it's real country.
Yeah, that's real. So for me, man, that's how I grew up. I grew up to the point, man, where we didn't even have transportation to go to that one main store, and it was only 1.5 miles away.
I was gonna say, how far was it?
Yeah, well, I think about maybe 2 miles away. But we had to go to what's called the candy lady, which was a lady who would go to that store and buy the candy and then put it in and set it up in her living room, and then all the kids in the community would go to her house and buy that candy. You know what I'm saying? So, I was living like that, among many other ways, to the point where when I rode a bike, number one, the bike didn't have no tires. Number two, it didn't have no chain. You know what I'm saying? So
build a bike.
And number three, I can't go out the yard because we was confined to the yard. So I'm just riding the bike, in the yard through the grass until the grass turned to dirt. It's that kind of living. But for me, man, just growing up like that, and then moving to a larger place of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, man. So first of all, the population in Haytown is probably about maybe 2,500.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then I moved to Poplar Bluff, Missouri, where the population was probably about 17,000, and I thought that was a big city.
Yeah,
but it wasn't. To my ignorance. And so anyway, man, I always just had a passion for urban culture, man, and just for the whole struggle of living, and I wanted to put myself in a position where I could help people, who were struggling in communities, and the reason urban culture, man, is just because urban culture across America in a lot of inner cities, man, just lack a lot of resources. It's so many. First of all, you got a lot of gangs, you got a lot of hustlers, you got a lot of pimps, you got a lot of prostitutes. You feel me? You got people who are not employed. You got poverty in the education system is not the greatest. You got single parent families, right? And just all sorts of disproportionate and issues of struggling. And so for me, man, I was just called to that. Like I'm like I want to be a part of something special. I want to be a part of a solution. I want to be a part of building a culture. I want to be part of helping people and developing people. And so for me, man, I had a mentor when I was in high school. And interesting enough, he was a white guy. And I had never really been around white people like that. But this guy kind of took me in his home. He taught me academics. His culture was different from mine. His kids didn't watch TV. But they all went to Ivy League colleges and this, that, and the other, man. And to my surprise, they would cuss. The kids would cuss. I'll never forget when I saw one of my little brother, man, Kevin, white dude, man. He just cussed his parents out. I'm like, what are you doing?
Man,
he didn't cuss him out. He cussed in front of him.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, what? Like, bro, I'm about to be put under the table. I'm about to be knocked under the table. Yeah. So there was these cultural differences that we had, but I love learning. Mm-hmm. But the point that I'm making, man, is that Mr. Kalich instilled in me, man, just this level of mentorship. Like he was there, and he just kept pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring into me. And then when I went to college, I had a black mentor named Frank McKinney, and this guy was the dean of the business school. And I had never seen a black male in such a powerful position at such a credible institution. And he took me under his wing, man, and allowed me to coach and his basketball team and his organization. And, he was like a father figure to me and just kind of taught me a lot of things about business and people and networking and all sorts of things, man. And both of these guys are still my mentors today. But that's why I chose urban culture, man, because I felt like that's what the need was. And at the end of the day, these guys put something in me that was contagious, and I just can't shake it, man. And so I'm just paying it forward.
Hey, y'all already know what's going on. It's your boy Jay Rio. I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Dean, A.K.A. XROSS, and we're going to get back in tune. Hey, look, it's your boy Jay Rio, and I'm here with Mr. Dean, and we're going to get a little bit deeper into knowing who he is, what he does, and just, open up a little bit. So we're going to stay in tune. So my next question, Mr. Dean, to you is, how do you see, or not how, where do you see your progress? How do you see your progress right now from being in St. Paul High School to currently where the Man Up Club is at this current time?
Well, first of all, it's really evolved. You're talking 2012 when I was in St. Paul and started the Man Up Club, and just as an after school program, and just working with about 15 to 20, young men throughout the week. And we didn't even, we were not a nonprofit organization at that time. It was just a vision that I had and a dream that I had, and just wanting to be effective. But like the Bible says, don't despise small beginnings, and that's how it started, man. It just kind of started with a passion. It started with a thought. It started with wanting to be effective. It started with seeing a problem and wanting to help solve it. Now you fast forward, 12 years later to today, the Man Up Club is thriving. Obviously we've been around 12 years. We're a nonprofit organization right now. We have staff. You're one of them.
Yes,
We have our own facility, which is a beautiful state-of-the-art facility in this, downtown Minneapolis, out of all places, which is prime location, prime real estate. And we got 13 different programs that we're offering. We originally went from just mentoring guys to, having a culinary arts program, to having a music production program, to having a fitness center, to having, annual festival, all sorts of things, from tutoring to one-on-one mentorship to group mentorship. We got a scholarship fund, now where we're offering guys scholarships to have a trade or to go on to college. Yep. We got the construction program with Youth Build, and speaking of Youth Build is a program that we have within the Man Up Club where, we develop student workers and teach them construction skills as well as mentoring them. And me and my wife have another company, a commercial construction firm called Eden Resources. And Eden Resources is a commercial construction firm where we manage, major projects, in around the country and here in the Twin Cities. And so it was just a beautiful thing to be able to take the for-profit organization and to be able to partner with the nonprofit organization to equip, young men and women, in the construction field, who are in high school. And that program is for, kids age 16 to 24, and where we're actually paying them to learn construction and learn a trade and give them a career, one of which you're a part of.
Yes, sir.
So
it's very critical.
Yeah. And so, to be able to offer that to young people like yourself, man, number one, to be able to just employ them, like, that's huge. Like, to me, that's like the American dream, boy, to own your own business to the point where you can actually employ people and give them a lifestyle and a paycheck, and a job. Like, that's huge, because here's part of the issue that we faced, within the Man Up Club, is that we would mentor young men and give them these necessary skills to survive in life and give them knowledge and information and teach them all sorts of things, right?
And they're allowed to do it
But
by themselves.
but after you give them all of that, if they had to go home and then exist throughout the week without a job and not being able to work and not be able to help their financial situation or help their family or help themselves, you know, that's what a real struggle was. So to some degree, I don't want to say it didn't matter, but it was much less important about the knowledge and the skill set that we was giving them if they couldn't put it to practical use somewhere, or if they had all this knowledge but didn't have no money. You feel me? Because money and economics can help get you out of situations, but it can also prevent you from getting into situations, which was the most critical thing for us. And so I was praying, and I'm like, God, bless us to be able to employ people ourselves, so that when these guys come through the Man Up Club, that we can, not only we can give them the soft skills and the social skills and the life skills, but we can also be able to give them a paycheck, so that when they walk out of our facility, they know they got what I call holistic mentorship. I mean, that's our mission, developing young boys into holistic, young men of character. At the end of the day, that's the whole goal. That's the whole, point. As to why we do what we do. But man, when you start comparing where we started to where we're at, there's really no comparison. God has just rained on us. He's gave us a good group of supporters and donors who understand our passion, who understand our vision, who understand, what we're trying to accomplish and where we're going and why we do what we do. And they've gotten behind us, because it takes a lot of resources. It takes a lot of finances to do what we do. We don't charge the young men anything, for the services that we provide for them. And, we have to have a top quality staff, a top quality team. We don't cut corners on that. But where we are today, man, we're just in a very blessed place. I mean, we got, obviously, if I'm talking to you right now, we got the national radio show on my, Holy Culture Radio. Shout out to my boy James, and in Sirius XM. And then we got the podcast on YouTube. But then we also got the Godflow Festival. That's an annual festival that we host downtown every year, which is large scale.
Y'all better get in tune. It's gonna be lit this year.
It's a lot going on, man. So we blessed beyond, as my son Titus say, man, we blessed beyond measure.
Man, so I heard you say earlier that you kind of just you love living the American dream of being able to employ people, right?
Yep.
So y'all already know he got multiple companies. How do you maneuver yourself as a businessman, for the young men that's listening out there and parents too? How do you make time in your schedule to run so much with only 24 hours to work with?
Great question, man. I was fortunate enough, number one, so first of all, I had all these ideas in my head of what I wanted to do, what I wanted to become, and all of these passions, and I was trying to put them all together because I wanted to do them all, because I felt like each one of them was important.
Yeah.
But the beauty of what I did was that it all had a central focus. The problem was I couldn't articulate to other people what the central focus was. So I was already a guy who was rapping, and I was doing Christian hip hop. I was already an athlete. I was mentoring guys. I knew I wanted my own festival. You feel me? I knew I wanted my own record label. Construction was a passion of my wife's. Consider we're married. When the two come together, they won. So her passion became my passion. And so I'm thinking about, I knew I wanted to have a radio show.
Man, everything.
You feel me?
Everything he's saying is literally just came to pass. Like, it's one of those things. It's like a man can have a vision, but you can't see the vision until it happens.
Yeah. And so I had all of these things that I, wanted. I wanted a clubhouse, whatever,
Yeah.
man. I wanted all these things. But what I realized was, I needed to centralize it. I needed to bring it all together. And God was already doing it, but I just couldn't articulate the vision that he had put in my head to other people. And so, when people would ask me, I would say, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I got that. I'm like, okay, so let me step into it for real too. So we making movies now too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it can blow your mind when you think about it, because we're making our first Man Up Club film,
Yeah.
and we was making music videos. I'm a music executive. You feel me? I'm a manager of artists. So all of these things that are exciting, wonderful things, they had to culminate into one place, and I didn't know how it was going to happen. God knew, but I didn't.
Hey, next thing is a Man Up Club album.
Hey, and we working on. And so no, watch this though. But now we got the body.
Exactly.
You feel me? And the body is just a group of creatives statewide across Minnesota. Where we come together to spread the gospel, man, through our creative talents, and we do it through the Man Up Club. So, all right. So the point I'm making with all of this is that I had to bring all of this stuff together, and God had already brought it together. I couldn't articulate it in my mind. So when people would ask me about the things I want to do in my passion, I would explain all of this to them. And so what I recognized was by the time I was finished, man, they was looking at me cross-eyed because they were overwhelmed. Like, you all over the place. How you gonna get all this done now? But I knew I would. I didn't know how, but I knew I would.
So I think that's the biggest thing is knowing you can do it. It's just about how.
And that's a lesson for you right there across the world, across the country. You don't have to know how. You just have to know what you want, and you have to go after with everything that's in you. And if God put it in you, man, just keep working and he'll bring it all together. The scripture says that all things work together for good for those who love the Lord and those who are called according to his purpose. And I was called according to his purpose. So how do I bring all this together? Well, first of all, I enrolled into DeVos Urban Institute, which is a national organization that focuses in on urban youth workers, and it develops them. It's a cohort of about 10 to 15 people, and they do it per city, and they were doing one in Minneapolis. And so I got a recommendation through Art Erickson of Urban Ventures to be a part of it. And so when I joined it, it's kind of like a graduate course that's accelerated that you do in like 15 months, like a year and a half.
They still have that, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I might recommend some Men Up Men for it. So, but what DeVos taught me was how to bring all those ideas together and to really how to strategically plan it, to find out what my areas of focus were, to find out what type of worker I am, to keep my my focus at the forefront, to keep the big picture, or the main thing, and then to develop things around it as to how it was going to work systematically from an infrastructure standpoint, and then from a spiritual standpoint as to how it applied to me spiritually, how it applies to the community spiritually, and even in addition to that. How I was going to create the balance, which is the most important thing, to be able to do it all and still maintain a healthy balance between family life and work. And so DeVos kind of taught me that. And we had to develop this plan at the end of all of it and present it. And so that's when it all came together, when I was putting it together and I had to present this to the team, man. And so, at the end of the day, it's just like, okay, that's when the light bulb went on. I'm like, I got it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a nonprofit organization. I'm going to partner with my for-profit companies. I'm going to take my construction firm. I'm going to partner with my Man Up Club, and we're going to go for a grant. We're going to offer a construction mentoring program to young kids. I'm going to take my studio, which we already doing music, my passion for Christian hip hop that I love, and I'm going to put my artists out through the music, through the studio and what have you, which is what we've been doing. But at the same time, I'm a partner, the record label with the nonprofit organization, and we're going to use it not to just release records, but now we're going to use it to develop a music program so that these guys can get these skills and we can tap into their talent, and we can teach them how to get residual income and release music. And then we're going to get a youth center, and the youth center, we're going to put a stage in the youth center and do that every month, where they can hone their skills and know how to. And so we're gonna get a festival and create a large platform for Christian hip hop called God Flow, where the young men who are in the Man Up Club can actually run the festival and be a part of it and learn how to put events together, because there's so many skill sets that come with that. And we're gonna get the youth center, and we're gonna offer all of these just different types of programs. And you fast forward to today, and these are all the things that we're doing.
Man.
And it's marvelous in God's sight, bro.
Yeah, so y'all stay tuned with us. We're gonna get back into this real soon. And look, If y'all want to hear more, stay tuned into the Man Up Club Presents on Holy Culture Radio. It's lit. Hey, y'all already know what it is. I'm back with the one and only Mr. Dean, A.K.A. XROSS.
Yo.
Let's get back into this little interview we still got going on. So my next question to you is, and I know a lot of y'all probably asking, what don't this man do? Why don't he sit down and rest sometimes? So the question is, the question is, was being the first CHH artist, Christian hip hop artist in Minnesota, was that not enough for you as far as making an impact on urban culture or just culture in general in Minnesota?
So, well, to answer your question in the affirmative, no, it was not enough. It was a great accomplishment, and I love it. And I hold it dear to my heart because it allows me to see God a lot clearer, and it lets me know that God keeps his promises and that the Lord is just truly faithful, because I knew where I was at before I got into Christian hip hop. I was out here in these streets, doing God knows what, right? And at the time in which he called me into the ministry and Christian hip hop and, all of that, I was just like, man, ain't nobody doing this stuff. Like, who's rapping for God? I caught it in the streets and I caught it in the church. I caught it both ways, to the point where nobody was really accepting. And so I'm just like, why would you call me to do something that ain't nobody doing? And when you think about that, it's actually beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, God, you calling me to do something that ain't nobody doing. It's like, light bulb, bro. That's the whole point. I'm calling you, little old you,
To start off
and do something that nobody around here in this particular state.
So do you consider yourself a trailblazer when it comes to
Definitely that? A trailblazer and a pioneer, man. I wholeheartedly accept that responsibility, because I know what comes with it and I know the responsibility of it. And, God has equipped me for it, to be able to articulate and talk to different sectors of people, depending on their level of interest around it. Whether that's a pastor or whether that's a thug in the street or whether that's a businessman in the corporate room. I can have a conversation with all of these people in regards to, Christian hip hop or music or, or ministry and what have you, and be able to apply biblical application, sound doctrine and sound biblical application to an unorthodox ministry that was generated through urban culture in New York in the 70s. You feel me?
Yeah.
Being able to bridge that gap. God has called me to that, and that comes with experience. But for me, man, like, being a pioneer of Christian hip hop, I love it. Because for me, it was bigger than me just being the man or me being a rapper. Naturally, when you're a rapper, the shine is on you. The whole purpose and focus is on you to shine. But God had put something in me that was just much deeper than that, because for me, it was more about the culture. And if you look at what I'm doing now, even that, it was that same passion that transferred from Christian hip hop into mentorship. Because for me, even with mentorship, it's about providing a resource to the community for the betterment of the community. When I was doing Christian hip hop and I didn't have the Mentor Leadership Organization, it was about providing a platform for the body of Christ and for the community of people in the community who didn't have faith. My mission was always to reach the unchurched, the people who didn't have faith, the people who didn't know Jesus. You feel me? That was the whole goal for me. And so it was, me doing Christian hip hop was never about me. It was about the people and giving them what they need and pointing them to God, and pointing a culture or a community to God. Man, I get no greater satisfaction than to see young kids, and more specifically even in urban culture, that they just get exposed and they get open, to the goodness of God and who He is, and like, okay, let me tap in and get a real relationship with Him, man. I love that.
And it's one of the biggest growing genres right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And listen, y'all, if y'all have not heard Christian hip hop music ever, I'm telling y'all, tap in. I don't care who you tap into. I would like you to tap into XROSS, Sis and Lil Bro.
Yeah.
You feel me? So if y'all ain't never heard it, go and listen to it, because it will give you a different vision on music.
Speaking of which, let me stick a pin to that, because you said something that's important that I think needs to be said, that I wasn't really going to talk about until you just mentioned them. But even like being a pioneer of Christian hip hop, man, I've been doing this 20 years, and you fast forward now, my kids are doing it, you know, and they're prolific at it. I mean, they're traveling the world. They've been everywhere. Africa, all sorts of places, man, you know, doing Christian hip hop, you know, and shout out to Titus, my son, and my daughter Selena, because they both have albums in their own right. And then they came together as a duo to do it together. And, you know, God has opened doors, and you know it's God because of the way things unfold. And he's just created some tremendous opportunities for them. I mean, they're on BET, on the number one hit TV series, Kingdom Business, debuting as themselves. You feel me? They just came off the Flavor Fest tour. Yep. And they're in the studio, you know, consistently making music and what have you. But to see the legacy go on from what I started a long time ago, is that's just like a major blessing. So yeah, shout out, go check out Selena Lena. Her IG is I am Selena Lena. That's CELENALENA, and then I am Titus, I am TYTIST. Or check them out at We Sissin' LeBro. The name of their group is called Sissin' LeBro, and that's WESISNLILBRO. Or you just check your boy out, man. I just released a new single called Hood Anthem, you know what I'm saying, with some of the man up guys here. And I'm just trying to put people on, man, to what's popping.
And I think that's very important, that you been a pioneer of the game, and you not necessarily, you ain't holding, how they say it, you not holding back. You ain't, what's another word for it? Like, you passing the torch pretty much.
Absolutely, man. I'm not hoarding anything and keeping nothing to myself. Like for me, somebody told me that, I don't know if it was I think it was a prophet that told me, it was like the way in which the Lord is, and I believe him. It was like the way in which the Lord is going to use you is, they were saying like, you're a warehouse of God's resources, and God is just going to be sending like 18. If you could imagine, God is going to be, for an analogy, God is going to be sending 18-wheeler trucks and just backing them up into your warehouse and unloading resources, and your responsibility is to sort those resources, load them back up into those trucks, and send those trucks out into the community to deliver the resources of God. I thought that was so dope.
That's a very good analogy, because one is like, he can back it up for you, and he can give you your resources, but it's about how you use it.
Exactly.
And like you said, you put it back on the truck and go send it out to the community. And that's very important, because now that we know you a little more, we know that you got resources, and you got connections. And so my next question is, if y'all don't know, God Flow is a annual festival, and every year we bring a celebrity, talk to the crowd and the audience, and talk to the young men about some mentor stuff and some stuff like that. But why do you have to necessarily, not, you don't have to, but why do you bring us a big time celebrity to talk to the guys and talk to the crowd on their path and their on their path and on their journey of the faith?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's not a lot of Christian hip hop festivals. Ours is one of the very few in the country that's national and on a large scale.
And it's banging.
Thank you. And so for me, like I said earlier, man, I'm all about outreach. I'm all about the unchurched. I'm all about those who don't know Christ. And so when I put my festival together, which is God Flow Festival, go check it out at godflowfest.com. The reason I put my festival together, man, was because I wanted to have an impact in our local community, and I wanted to reach the unsaved. And we have been doing God Flow since 2014. A lot of people don't know that. We just called it something different. We first called it Church in the Wild, and we would do it at the Capri Theater, which is about a 200-seat theater in North Minneapolis in the hood, when we would just do it every month. But then when George Floyd got murdered, man, you know, we had to have a spiritual response because everybody around the world knows that at that time, the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, was in disarray, and, you know, riots was happening and cops was killing brothers, and politics was just ridiculous, and the church was scrambling, and a lot of the culture
was burning up.
Yeah, a lot of Minnesota burning up, and a lot of young people wasn't in the church; they was out in these streets. You know, so you got the mayor, you got the chief of police, and you got all these political figures and community figures trying to give a response. And for us, we like, okay, all of those natural responses are great, and we need them. But what about the spiritual response that these young people need to be able to tap into a higher power, Jesus Christ? You feel me? And tap into the source. And, you know, we need prayer. Our city need prayer. Our state need prayer. Our country need prayer. Our community need prayer. These young urban kids who are hurt and heartbroken, they need prayer.
And just for y'all out there, this is not justifying no criminal act on no black male, or we are not justifying no act that cops or anyone has committed. We are saying this is what they needed during the time of those crises.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what we wanted to do, man, was we wanted to bring the church to the streets. And so we done it through Godflow. So what we did, we scaled up what we were doing. We got a massive stage. We partnered with about 100 churches across the Twin Cities. You know, apostolic churches, Baptist churches, evangelical churches. Like we came together. I wish we could still do that and still continue it, and not just have to do it on the heels of conflict and violence, and that we could just learn how to move together as a unit, you know what I'm saying, and not just as a response to something happening within the community. And we got to get to that place. So pray for the city, and pray for, you know, the kingdom of God and that, right? But yeah, man, we mobilized and we launched Godflow Festival. And I brought in T.I. And the reason I brought him in is because I didn't bring T.I. in to preach the gospel. I knew I was going to do that. I brought T.I. in, man, because I wanted him to talk to the young brothers about taking care of their community and looking out for each other and to stop killing each other. You know, so from that perspective. And then, you know, this past year we brought in Black China, Angela White, because she had her transformation. You know, and took out her implants and gave her life to Christ, and she got baptized. And so I had her give her testimony. So that's what Godflow is about. That's what it's still about. As a matter of fact, and Cedric the Entertainer. Yep. Said came through. So I got these people, man, because, you know, even though they're secular celebrities, man, you know, they love Jesus too, and they have influence within the culture. So, you know, I want people, hey, tap in with us. Go to godflowfest.com. The festival is coming up this summer, August 17th, in Minneapolis at the Fine Line, man. Tap in with us. Hey, listen, it's your man Cross, and I appreciate this interview. If you want to know more about the organization, go to themanupclub.org. Tap in with us on our IG at themanupclub.mn. You know what I'm saying? We'd love to hear from you. If you want to be a part of our organization or a partner, donate to us. We're here. But be sure to watch the podcast on YouTube at The Man Up Club Presents.